Voting in Kyrgyzstan's national election is over. People have cast their ballots in a poll which will see the country become Central Asia's first parliamentary democracy. Counting is now underway. Well, now let's cross live to our correspondents, Natalia Novikova and Igor Piskunov in Kyrgyzstan. And first of all, we'll go to you, Natalia. It's a landmark vote for Kyrgyzstan. So how did the capital actually handle this ballot?
Well, the security has been tightened throughout the Kyrgyz capital, Bishkek, over the past couple of hours. It has been rather quiet here. There's a lot of police patrolling the streets of Bishkek at the moment. No serious violations have been registered here. The average turnout throughout the country at this election has been about 50%, and according to preliminary records, the election has gone rather smooth. And like you just said, it is indeed a landmark vote for the country, because after this election, after the votes are counted, regardless of how many people have shown up at this election, Kyrgyzstan will become the first Central Asian country to become a parliamentary state where a prime minister has more power than the president, and it's accountable to the parliament. This is the first country in Central Asia to become a parliamentary state. And in April this year, when President Bakiyev was overthrown, many people were killed and many more were injured, and people were unhappy with the former president's policies that have led many to live in poverty. And this is the reason why he was overthrown. And after he was overthrown, the temporary government of Kyrgyzstan has held a referendum during which it was decided to turn the country into a parliamentary state.
Well, we'll come back to you for a little more later, Natalia. In the meantime, let's now turn to the southern city of Osh now. Igor, it showed the highest turnout this Sunday, so what's the atmosphere like there in the city?
Well, that's right. That's the biggest news from Osh this Sunday, is that this city showed the biggest voter turnout in the entire country. Around 50% of all the people, all the locals here eligible to vote, showed up to the polling stations and cast their ballots. This is really unexpected, since this city really went through a lot of really difficult and hard times recently. Last June, there was quite a lot of ethnic violence, massive ethnic clashes between the local population of the Kyrgyz and Uzbek nationals. Armed gangs destroyed businesses and destroyed homes, and as a result, hundreds of people were killed, several thousand were injured, and several thousand more had to flee their homes. The city basically is still recovering from those several days of violence back in June. That's why there were fears that this violence could reemerge as the voting is held. But nevertheless, the voting was held in a calm fashion. Quite little people on the streets that we saw today, and this is despite the fact that previously there were reports of threats being sent out to the local population via SMS and posters and flyers distributed in here and in other southern cities of Kyrgyzstan calling for violence. So once again, this is really unexpected. So the atmosphere here is people are, once again, they are actually now getting some hope for stability for the first time in months.
Natalia, back to you now. Despite reports by international observers that there were no serious legal violations or trouble, security has been tightened at the polling stations to protect the count. So is there still a perceived threat?
Well, indeed, the security has been tightened. Just 2 hours before the polls have closed, the police have started patrolling the streets, and there was a lot of police, and a lot of people believe that this election may be accompanied with a lot of riots, and many people still believe that the counting of votes, actually after the votes are counted, that political rallies can still take place on the streets of Bishkek. So it's really too soon to tell whether the elections went smoothly. And we, out of the people that we've spoken to on the streets, many have said that they believe that many leaders of the political parties might get attacked. And after all, there were a record number of 29 political parties registered for this election, but many of them had quite similar political agendas. So a lot of people were confused which parties to vote for. But the temporary government has said that they have security forces on full alert to prevent demonstrations or resist any rallies or riots that may take place during or after the election.
Igor, as we've established, Osh, the city itself, has actually shown the highest turnout in this vote. But what do the people actually there in the city want? Will the majority accept the result, whatever it is?
Well, it is hard to say at the moment. Like Natalia said, some more rallies are possible overnight, and like she also said, that security is really tight in the capital. It's really tight in the entire country, and especially here in the south, and perhaps that's why the voting process went so calmly and peacefully, and there were so little people on the streets. However, we did hear some unconfirmed, unofficial reports, rumors, and speculation that some protest rallies could be possible here overnight, because just to explain to you, the south of Kyrgyzstan has been traditionally supporting the Atajut political party, and according to these unofficial reports, their supporters said that if this party doesn't pass, then they may get together and rally protesting the results of the election. However, according to the latest exit polls, this party is now is one of the 5 parties, most successful parties so far, and that makes me conclude that it should be a peaceful night here in Osh if all of these figures are correct, and if these preliminary exit polls are correct, and if the situation is going to stay the same as it is now.
Thanks a lot, Igor. RT's Igor Piskunov and Natalia Novikova bringing us the latest on the situation in Kyrgyzstan, where the parliamentary vote has ended. Well, for more, I'm now joined by Andrew McEntee. He's a former OSCE observer in Kyrgyzstan, and he's joining us, I believe, from London. And Andrew, how would the change in political system contribute to making Kyrgyzstan a more stable democracy, do you think?
It may not, let's be honest. Russia, for example, has taken the view that a parliamentary-based government system will lead to more instability. Their view is that the Central Asian idea of the strongman heading the government presidential system that they're now getting rid of is the one which will bring stability and is most likely to bring peace across the region. The European Union disagrees, the United States disagrees, and the OSCE, which Russia, US, the EU are part of, are all in favour of this transition now towards a government based on the parliamentary system.
So we've got different opinions.
So it's actually an open question. It may not lead to stability. It's just a fact.
You're mentioning different opinions. We're talking about obviously America there. Obviously, it has an interest in the country, along with Russia, with the military bases in the territory, in the country itself. So do you think this new parliament change could actually change the situation for both countries? Would there be an impact at all?
Well, I think one big question which has to be asked is really. Maybe not tomorrow, because they have 15 days to form the government, but over the next couple of weeks. The big question will be really, what change? Has there really been a change? There has been talk already from Mr. Sariev of Akshumkar, who's most likely to be it's thought to be the new finance minister, that he would like to see the United States base, if it stays, have its rent increased by, I don't know, $40 million. So, you know, that could also be posturing. The fact is that Mr. Sariev, for example, himself was a candidate just last year for the presidential position. Now, what's happening is that people like him may not actually join the government. There is a view that they may actually decide to wait until next year's presidential election. Somehow, in the political culture, it's felt that while the power is being taken away from the presidency towards the parliament, given to the parliament, nevertheless, the prize is the presidency. So that's a curious situation that's being discussed even this very weekend.
What about...
It's all actually...
Sorry, can we just move on to about the implications for the whole of the Central Asian region itself? Obviously, Kyrgyzstan now looks likely to be the first state in Central Asia to become a parliamentary democracy. Now, do you think that in any way could influence other countries in the region? Will they follow the example, do you think?
Well, if you take the immediate neighbours, say Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, it's quite clear that they would rather see this project fail. They are countries which currently have stability through a strong central government dominated by a strongman president, the traditional authoritarian presidential system of Central Asia. Moving towards a parliamentary-based system would mean that they their backers, their financial backers, their political backers, people from the presidency right down to the villages in their countries would also find that their power base, their access to the economy would radically alter, because of course corruption and nepotism is very much part of, patronage is very much part of the presidential system. It may well be, though, that in reality a parliamentary system will be just as much rife with corruption and patronage and so on. It really just remains to be seen. The question isn't so much whether there's been a structural shift through a constitutional referendum 2 months ago. The question is whether there'll be a real cultural shift politically and in the way that government is run. Will there be open government? Will there be good governance in the sense of transparency so that any potential corruption is stamped out, is identified and stamped out? Or will it be the usual that, for example, the majority government will be the new regime, which has just taken over, the transition government, and that they will marginalise completely those who are supported by Kiev, those in the south around Osh and Batken, and leaving some instability there. Now, these are questions which really have to be answered maybe in a week or two's time.
Well, it's good to hear. Sorry, we are actually out of time now, and sorry to cut you off there, but we've got to move on. But it's good to hear what you have to say, bearing in mind, of course, you've been an observer in Kyrgyzstan. You know the country. It's really interesting to hear what you have to say. Thanks so much for your input there, Andrew McEntee. Thank you.